as a paper crafter, it's inevitable. At some point, you're going to struggle to choose the right colors for your next project. It's not just the photo that you need to consider, it's all that color theory. It's as if you have to study the colour wheel or get a fine arts degree just to work out what goes with what. Choose the right supplies and your project will come together like a dream. Choose the wrong ones and it might look like the craft store threw up all over it. Wow, too harsh? If you've ever had that feeling that something wasn't quite right with your project, chances are it's the way you've mixed and matched your supplies and the colours you've used. I used to struggle with that all of the time until I changed this one thing. There is a trick that your favourite paper crafters, including me, use all of the time, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. I don't have to try mixing and matching supplies or colours anymore because I get designers and industry professionals to do it for me. That's right, I only use supplies that are already curated as part of a scrapbook collection or as part of a scrapbooking kit, and that's what I'll be creating with today. I love the kits from Hip Kit Club, and I want to share with you how using these coordinated supplies will make your projects 100 times better. You'll see today how they can save you from having a colour matching headache ever again. Here's a look at the supplies I'll be creating with. If you love what you see and you'd like to give Hip Kit Club a try, be sure to check the description box below because I have a special coupon just for you. You'll get 10% off your order when you use Created by Gwen at checkout. That all being said, it's now time to get creating. I'm going to start by creating a frame. I really love the contrast of having a pattern paper that goes around all edges of the layout and then working with a more neutral cardstock or printed paper for the layout background. I do have a step-by-step tutorial for how I do this, which I'll be sure to link below. I like to do this first because I also add stitching around the edges, and sometimes that's a little bit tricky to do when you have lots of layers on the layout. Now, of course, I have a plan. I am going to be using these branding strips. So this is the little strip of paper that runs along the bottom edge of the 12 by 12 sheets. And on one side, it has the name of the paper and a barcode. And on the other side, it has this really pretty print. These are generally prints that are in the collection, but on a much smaller scale. Now, here's my plan. I am going to run these strips across the page. They are going to be weighted more towards the bottom than the top, and I'm going to use those strips as an anchoring point for everything on my layout. Whilst I start with just 2 of these paper strips, I do end up using a third one. I felt like it needed that for balance as I go along here. Once I have those in position, I am going to run this through my sewing machine as well. So there is a row of stitching that goes along the center of each of these paper strips. And now I'm just going to rough up those edges and give those strips a little bit of texture. You can see that there. Now my next idea is to run the title along this top edge here. My title is going to be quite a long one and it is watching. That might seem like an unusual word to put here on a picture of my daughter, which was taken on a very recent cruise that we went on. However, the full title is going to be Watching You Grow. And this layout is actually going to be one that's done in remembrance of my dad. Whenever I see a sunset, I'm really reminded of him. The day that he passed, there was the most beautiful sunset that I have ever seen my entire life. And this was the only sunset that we saw on our entire cruise, actually, as it so happened. And we just had this moment. I snapped the photo and I casually just said to her, Poppy's always going to be watching over you. And it was really beautiful. Yeah. So that's what today's layout's about. There will be plenty of other pages about the cruise and the details of the cruise. but I really wanted to capture that moment on this page. Scrapbooking for me has never ever really been about facts or like documenting facts. For example, we went on this cruise on this date, we visited these places. I do make pages like that, but that's probably maybe only 10% of the pages I create. Most of my creating is about everyday life and documenting the little moments that make that up. I now have my title in place and an idea of where my photo is going to go. It will be weighted towards the right, and then my main embellishment cluster will be on the left. I am going to need some florals, so it's time for some fussy cutting. I love fussy cutting. I find it so therapeutic, and I love how I can create a bunch of embellishments from a single sheet of 12 by 12 paper. So it was at this point that I realized I did want to add in that third strip of pattern paper, and it was not an easy task. The alphabet letters are actually vellum, so I have used the smallest amount of my ATG tape to secure them in place. And I was just trying to slide that pattern paper underneath there without changing things up too much. I had spent so much time trying to get them into the perfect spot. I didn't want to undo all that. With it all in position, I did go ahead and add another row of stitching along the center of that last paper strip. And that is actually what's going to keep those acetate pieces in place long term. I have added a photo mat and then added some stitching around my photo as well. So we have stitching in 3 places. We have it around the layout edge itself, around the border there, around the photo, and then along each of those paper strips. If you'd like to learn how to add stitching to your paper craft projects, I do have a full video on that I've created. I'll be sure to link it in the description box below. I now have a really clear idea of where all of the larger elements are going to go. So now it's time for the embellishing. Now, if you're not working with a kit, this is the bit that can be the hardest part. It's not at all easy to pull embellishments and bits and pieces from lots of different collections and pull them together to get a really cohesive layout. It's so hard that I actually don't even create that way at all anymore, ever. I'm working here with the main kit and the embellishment kit. And the reason I particularly get the embellishment kit is because I love to create a lot of embellishment clusters. I would say generally my pages are pretty embellishment heavy, so I do like to have those extra options. And I love that everything just coordinates so beautifully. It feels like the longest time since we've talked about flowing clusters, so let me show you the plan for this layout. I know many of you are new, so you may not have heard me talk about flowing clusters. They are very different to the usual clusters that scrapbookers may talk about. Rather than creating a visual triangle or 3 separate clusters on my page, I actually prefer to think of my clusters as flowing, as connected, and as tools to help draw the eye around the page. I've never heard any other scrapbookers talk about them like this, and in fact the term itself was created while I was on a crop. I was scrapbooking with one of my bestest friends and we were talking about my style, and she said, you know what, they're flowing clusters, and the term stuck. I am going to add in the rest of my title here. These are mini foam alphas that come with the kit, and while I do that, I'll show you what I mean about the flowing clusters. I know that automatically the eye will be drawn to the photo, and in particular, the subject in the photo. From there, I can guide it around the page. My main cluster will be the one that's on the left of the photo, and it will run from the top left-hand corner of the photo down towards the left to where the title starts. I also know that the eye will naturally want to travel left to right, and that's because that's how we read. So I'll create an embellishment cluster on the left there, and that's actually where I decided to place the rest of my title. It felt like it would go with the flow best there on the left. Lastly, I'll create a smaller embellishment cluster somewhere on the right, and that will do a couple of things. That will balance out the page. It will mean that not all of the embellishments are on the left-hand side, but it'll also act as a bit of a full stop. It will be somewhere for the eye to rest once it's scanned the page. Generally speaking, I am still creating 3 embellishment clusters, so I do end up with a visual triangle, but those clusters are far more connected than what you might typically see on a scrapbook layout. This is the part of my creating process where all of the auditioning happens. At this point, I know where all of my key elements are going. My photo and title are locked in. I have a very clear plan of where I want to put my embellishment clusters. It's now just a matter of building them. I've got lots of tips and strategies for building embellishment clusters, and I have created, I think, 3 or 4 videos now sharing those ideas. I will link those in the description box below. I really do feel that it's much easier to create them once I know where they're going to go. So if you're struggling with creating clusters, I would start there. The one thing I'm thinking a lot about at this point in the layout is my balance of color. So as I'm auditioning things here, I am switching things out to change up their size or shape, and I'm also switching things out purely because of their color. I'm working here with 5 colors from the collection, so I want to make sure that all of those colors are very well balanced across the whole page. I was even thinking about this right at the beginning of the process when I was choosing the colors for the letters in my title there. They may seem random, but it's no accident that the colours are very balanced across the page. Things are getting serious because I'm gluing stuff down. I have not said that in what feels like forever. It feels so good to finally be settled and to be creating again. Yes, it is almost done, but you know what? It's missing something. It's like a cake that's been baked and iced, but it's missing sprinkles. Adding these smaller details will really finish off the page. Of course, I'll leave you here with some close-up images so that you can see all of the details, the stitching, the vellum alphabet letters, and the really cute puffy stickers. Choosing the wrong supplies is just one of the mistakes many creatives make. And unfortunately, there are more. That's why I made this video. Let me share with you the big mistakes you could be making as a paper crafter and how to fix them. Be sure to watch it next, and I'll see you all again very soon. Until then, bye!